Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I have a well-written text. This is what the bureaucracy does. It tells you what to say and what not to say. But I've decided not to follow the text and say what I believe in, my conviction. Why am I here? I'm here, ladies and gentlemen, to reconnect. I understand the importance of Pakistan-US bilateral relationship, and I want to acknowledge that things have dipped somewhat. And this is nothing new. It's been cyclical. We've been very close, and we've been the most sanctioned of states as well. We cannot do without each other. This is what history tells us. And whenever we have cooperated and worked together, it has been to our mutual advantage. Here I am trying to explain to friends in Washington and reconnecting with a lot of friends at the UNGA. A lot of bilateral meetings gave me an opportunity of just coming to office, gave me an opportunity to reconnect with people, engage with them, and share ideas. The world has changed considerably. I was here perhaps 10 years ago. 8. So a lot has happened in these 8 years. But we have to move on. The United States priorities have changed. You have new friends in the region. But I'm here to tell you that by all means have new friends, but why drop friends that have been with you for the last 7 decades? Please understand the value of that long, extended relationship. Pakistan has undergone a change. We've just held elections on the 25th of July. The people of Pakistan expressed their will, and that's why I'm here. They've elected a party which did not exist before. The first national election this party contested was in 2013, and we were in popular vote, the second largest party in the country. Comes 2018, we are the largest party in parliament. And in popular vote, the most popular party today. This happened because people were disillusioned, disappointed with what they had in the past and what they saw. This was a vote for change. And when it is a vote for change, it's not just change of faces. It also invites revisiting policies and looking at things differently. The world is different, and we have to act and behave differently. In the limited time that we had, I was asked, this can go on for 35 minutes. But then I thought that will not be the most productive way of utilizing this time. So, Ali, I'm all yours.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. And it's wonderful being back at Asia Society, and thank you for putting this event together. It's also very good to see Shah Mahmood again in his new role, and congratulations on both the elections and returning as foreign minister in Pakistan. I think actually it's important to know that Shah Mahmood has been a politician in Pakistan for a very long time, so he's been deeply engaged in the election process and politics. But also he was foreign minister during a period of very intense engagement between the United States and Pakistan, and therefore has...
Sorry for interrupting you. Yeah. My constituency never learns. They keep re-electing me.
Well, I actually think it's good for the relationship and for the United States to have you as an interlocutor at this point in time, because you come to the job with enormous amount of experience, and you've seen the relationship on its up and its down, and during a very tough period early in the Obama administration, when Afghanistan and Pakistan was a top priority for U.S. foreign policy. So I wanted to sort of first pick on the point. Wanted to pick up on the points you made about the importance of this election, and maybe even at a sort of a ground level. You ran in the elections, you ran in the campaign. So what did you see that was different about the country itself? And I raise this because often Pakistan is just sort of a black box to most Americans. We see it as a foreign policy focused on Afghanistan, but at least the signs were that there's a significant change happening within the country. So I wanted to see what your impressions were about what's different about Pakistan that this election shows us.
65% of our population today falls in the category of youth. We have a growing middle class, an educated, growing middle class. We have a sizable overseas Pakistani community, about 1 million in the US. And that's where the bulk of our support comes from. Pakistanis, American Pakistanis, British Pakistanis, who no longer live in Pakistan, but care about Pakistan, because they're friends, they're relatives. And they've seen how democracies function. They've seen how governments are held accountable. They know what rule of law means. And they expect the same back home. That was not being delivered. We had entrenched parties. There is a notion that there is a fundamentalist religious right overtaking. No. Results clearly spell out. They are a voice, they're vociferous, they make a lot of noise, but the people of Pakistan do not vote for them. They vote for parties which they feel have something to offer for the future. They tried 2 parties that have been taking turns to govern Pakistan. I was affiliated with one. And are disappointed, and were disappointed with both of them. They felt, and the youth feels, they've outlived their utility, and they wanted change. And in the PTI, which is the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, led by Prime Minister Imran Khan, they see hope. They've attached hope. They're expecting change. They're expecting us to think differently, govern differently, and respond differently. They gave us an opportunity in the province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, that's the province that borders Afghanistan, We are relatively a new party. Let me also acknowledge most of our members are first-timers, inexperienced, but they mean well. And they have their heart in the right place. So we were tried in KP. We did not have a very friendly central government. Nonetheless, they saw us deliver on police reform, on backing away from political interference, and allowed the bureaucracy to function the way it should function. They saw our priorities change. Our focus was on people as opposed to infrastructure, health, education, reduction in corruption. And they said, okay, if they can do it in one province, let's give them a chance at the national level. If you look at the pattern, no party has been returned twice in that province. It's a very egalitarian, it's a very different society compared to other provinces of the country. And they want change. But they acted differently against the norm, voted for us with a bigger margin. And not just in that province, have given us an opportunity to govern Pakistan at the national level. So they want delivery. They want to see honest leadership. They want to see institutions reformed. They want institutionalized politics. They do not want a family hold over politics. You know, the two other main parties are governed by families, and then they have their children and their grandchildren, everybody in line to take over. So they're thinking differently. Their voting pattern has been different, and here we are.
So, I mean, one of the big issues that's has always been on the table has been religious radicalism, Islamic radicalism, and its role in politics in Pakistan. I mean, should we be hopeful that PTI will be able to, do things very differently? And the reason I raise it is because, recently there was again a spate of protests to force resignation of an economist that the Prime Minister had identified as a key advisor because of his religious background. And so he gave a sense that, that yes, religious parties may not be winning, but they might be trying to create obstacles to PTI's agenda going forward.
The fact that we picked up individuals who we thought were competent to give us advice on economic reform speaks of our mindset. We picked up experts from the US, from UK, from academia, from outside government, so that we can have the input, from experts, because we'll have to take some very difficult decisions. You cannot have business as usual when you have a fiscal deficit touching close to 7.2%. And the last government promised that this is the last time you'll see the face of IMF. And where are we heading? They thought all the macroeconomic indicators had been fixed. Nothing has been fixed. In fact, things have gone down. We have a historic trade deficit. Unemployment is on the rise. Foreign direct investment has gone down. Exports have plummeted. Imports have risen. And we have a serious economic situation. So We want to draw on the best talent available inside and outside the country to fix the economy. We feel the people of Pakistan have voted us to bring about that economic change, that social change. And the world has changed as well to a large extent. We are a party that we don't have deep pockets. And we had very limited space in the print and even the electronic media. Now we have a very, very vibrant and very open electronic media. But we had our limitations. But then a new revolution took place. And that's the social media. And that's where our message went out to the people. That is where we reached out. And that's where the youth of Pakistan connected with us and were able to relate to us and respond to us.
So let me shift to relations with the United States. I mean, you were, as I mentioned, foreign minister during a very intense period of engagement, early period of the Obama administration. You saw the relationship go through sort of ebbs and flows. How is it different this time? And where do how do you assess U.S.'s policy towards Pakistan at this moment?
Difficult question.
I didn't intend it to be, but
the issues are the same. I mean, the focus remains the same. United States is in the middle of perhaps the longest war they've been in. 17 years in Afghanistan. I remember when I was here under a different administration, Pakistan was then perhaps the darling of the West. Everybody wanted to engage with Pakistan, help Pakistan, and let me thank you for the assistance that we received. Let me thank you for the training and the equipment that we received for dealing with sort of terrorism. But unfortunately, and we utilized it for that purpose. But unfortunately, the environment has changed. The United States, as I said earlier on, new friends. And you have a right to have new friends. You're independent, you're a sovereign country, and you choose who you want to engage with. Today, India is a strategic partner of the United States. We have no quarrels with that. But we feel that Pakistan is an ally who's stood with the United States, and whenever we've stood with you, you've benefited. Whether it was the Cold War, the Soviet invasion, or when you were hit in 9/11 by Al-Qaeda and their network, we were the ones to share, to stand with you, and collectively we decimated that evil. I think the job is half done. You have new challenges emerging, and what we see growing, certainly the ability of Al-Qaeda to hit mainland US has gone down, and thank God for that. But we contributed. Our soldiers, our police, our citizens contributed we have a contribution in your safety, and that should be acknowledged. But then there are new challenges. ISIS is a new challenge, and their footprint in Afghanistan is growing considerably, and that is of concern to us. Drug production that had gone down is on the rise again. Perhaps in the last 1 or 2 years, it's gone up by 78%. But that is a concern, because we were put on the grey list and we were asked to choke terror financing, and we want to do that because we know what terrorism is, and we've been hit by terrorism. We've lost 70,000 people. You lost 2,000 very precious lives, and we can share your pain. But we lost 70,000 people. Our economy was hit. Perhaps, we're not even clear on the figures, but it's over perhaps $125 billion. The loss of infrastructure and the lost economic opportunities. So these are the new challenges. We need a new understanding. I'm here to reconnect and tell this administration. We had a meeting. Secretary Pompeo stopped in Islamabad. He was on his way to Delhi for a 2+2 meeting, but he so chose to come to Pakistan, and I appreciate that. We had a good exchange. He met the civil and the military leadership, and we met collectively. And I'm sure that he's come back with a very clear understanding that today most and all institutions in Pakistan are on the same page. The civil and the military leadership is one, because the interest of Pakistan is one. And we know what the challenge is. And we know the only way we can overcome this challenge is that we're on the same page. And thank God we're on the same page.
So the administration has also now appointed a new special envoy to Afghanistan, Ambassador Zalmay Khalilzad. And I was actually listening to an interview he did on National Public Radio this morning. Was he calm? He was very calm, and the only specific thing he said about Pakistan is that he hopes Pakistan has turned a new page. But I think more sort of to where does this put U.S. and Pakistan? He specified that his mandate is very narrow, much narrower than, say, Richard Holbrooke and his successors was, which is singularly to negotiate or facilitate a reconciliation negotiation between the Taliban and the Afghan government. Which sort of begs the question as to what is it that the U.S. is specifically asking Pakistan? Is it now counterterrorism, or is it supporting the peace talks? Is it supporting the U.S. leaving Afghanistan? And the counterterrorism one is the old story, but these two other ones are new asks of Pakistan, of helping the U.S. get out of Afghanistan. And I don't know whether that's to Pakistan's, what does Pakistan sort of think about U.S. staying or leaving? And secondly, for Pakistan to actively support a peace process in Afghanistan.
I'm glad Zal qualified his role. His role is no longer AFPAC.
No.
His role is Afghanistan. Focus on Afghanistan. I met him yesterday. Zal has a history.
Of course.
He's well known in Pakistan. And I suggested to him, as a friend, that he has to be sensitive to the statements that he's made in the past, because he has a different role to play. His role is of engagement. His role is of a bridge builder. And if one side that you expect to facilitate and help is wary of your position, then his role becomes difficult. I'm sure he's cognizant of that. I'm sure he's sensitive to that. And I'm sure if he wants to deliver, which he has to, then he has to be more sensitive to the concerns that Pakistan has often expressed. But then, let's not look backwards. Let's look ahead. And let's see. He is the envoy, and we have to deal with him. And we'll try and deal in an honest way. My approach, Wali, is going to be honest. It's going to be candid. I'm going to tell my friends in the US, the Secretary, that this is what we can and this is what we cannot do. Disappointments come in when we make promises that we cannot deliver on. So we have to be careful on what we commit to, and when we commit to something, we should honor it. But what the US has to realize is that they have to understand the new evolution and the new thought process in the country. Today, as never before, there's more consensus in what direction we have to go. Today, people of Pakistan are clear that extremism has to be reversed. Militancy is not what we need. And terrorism has hit us more than anyone else. And that is why the operations that you've seen undertaken by the armed forces of Pakistan in the tribal belt, in the areas bordering Afghanistan, have been extremely successful. They have been successful because the people were supporting. Today, the nation is behind what they're doing. And this happened when people realized that this element started killing innocent children, maiming them, destroying our economy and our image. That's not the image of Islam that we project or we believe in. You know where I'm coming from. So, that qualitative change, that learning, and that new sort of evolved consensus is the environment where you should be engaging with Pakistan and not disconnecting with Pakistan. I think the administration will miss an opportunity if they do not take advantage of this new feeling within the country. We want to spend time on issues of concern to us. We want peace in the region. We want peace in Afghanistan. It is in my enlightened self-interest to have a peaceful, stable Afghanistan. Only then can I focus on my schools and my health and job creation and issues of governance and dealing with corruption. If I'm worried about situation on the Western Front, if I have unease on the Eastern side, and believe you me, we wanted to engage on the Eastern side as well. They are not, my friends on the East are still stuck in the rhetoric that they had, they have become prisoners of. And what did we do? 25th is the election. 26th of July, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, makes a first victory speech address to the nation. And he says, every step towards peace, if you take one, we will take two. He receives a letter from Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and in that letter, it says we have to go into constructive engagement. What is constructive engagement? You have to sit and talk. That is constructive engagement. And what did we do? We responded, and we responded positively. And he suggested, why don't the foreign ministers meet on the sidelines of UNGA? And we were ready. A date was given, 27th of September, yesterday. Today is the 28th, right? 27th. We were supposed to meet. What happened? Within 24 hours, they changed their minds. The meeting was called off. Now, if the United States wants us to help, and we want to help in our own interest, because we want peace in the region, then they have to tell their new strategic partner to give us ease on the eastern side so that we can concentrate on areas of mutual interest. We had the SAARC ministerial meeting yesterday. It was sad. It was sad to see how a regional forum had become hostage to the needs of one nation. How people wanted to engage, other countries wanted to engage. You talk of, I was listening to Sushma ji, she said, regional cooperation. I said, how can you have regional cooperation when you're not even willing to agree to a date to the next summit meeting? How do we connect?
So, I mean, one of the, at least everybody was hopeful that in both countries now you have prime ministers that are popular and have been elected with a strong mandate. So it's actually perhaps disheartening to think that things are hitting an obstacle. But do you think that, I mean, it's an election year in India. Do you think that we have to wait until May for the election to pass in India before there can be constructive engagement?
Well, we've never shied away. Unfortunately, the dialogue process has been suspended for the last 3 years. Whenever there's forward movement, there's some pretext that comes in the way. We are ready. We are not asking for it, but the message is loud and clear. Whenever you're ready, Pakistan will never shy away because we want to move on. We want the region to develop. We want the region to prosper. We have millions of people. One of the priorities of Imran Khan's government is lifting people out of poverty. And one of the things when he was meeting the Chinese foreign minister, he said, one thing I admire of the Chinese leadership is the way you lifted millions out of poverty. We want to do that. I mean, we have people deprived of clean drinking water. What should be our priorities?
So last time when we were engaged in Afghanistan, in Pakistan-U.S. relations, at least it was very clear to me there was, just essentially two powers in this conversation. It was Pakistan and it was the United States, and the U.S. was the main, if you would, outside actor in that arena. Since then, things have changed. There is China with a massive investment in Pakistan, CPAC. There is at least a sense of the different alignment in this region between Iran, Turkey, Russia, and perhaps China. And I know you recently met with your Turkish counterpart as well. And I'm wondering whether this makes any difference. I mean, the fact that the Russians are much more engaged in Afghanistan along with Iran, that there is a sort of a Turkish-Iranian Russian axis that is obviously operating in the Middle East, that now China is a much bigger actor, at least economically, in Pakistan, and everybody is obviously gradually trying to get their head around what the One Belt, One Road that China has embarked on means for the geostrategy of the region. And I'm wondering whether you think that this is going to change the way we ought to be thinking in the United States about South Asia, about Afghanistan, about these conflicts.
Let's try and distinguish the two. Middle East is certainly more complicated, and there are different powers have different views. You know, within the Muslim world, there are different views. You know, and you've you've taken a few names that you've touched on that. But on Afghanistan, I think there's an opportunity. There is a real opportunity. The Chinese interests are no different from the U.S. interests. They can be on the same page easily, and they've just had a trilateral in Beijing, and we might be having another one in December in Kabul. They want to help promote peace and stability. They are willing to help improve our understanding with Afghanistan. And the fact that I chose the first country to visit was Afghanistan, because I, as Foreign Minister, understood it is critically important to have a good relationship with Afghanistan. We've had ups and downs, but we have to coexist. We are neighbors, and our their trade goes through Pakistan. If there's peace, if there's reconstruction in Afghanistan, we benefit. So that's the message that I sent across. But as you said, there are more players. It's not just Afghanistan, Pakistan, and the US. Obviously, there are other neighbors, there are other players that are equally important, and they have gained influence over the years. So what we want to share with the US administration is that we will play our role. We will play a constructive, engaging role, but it's a shared responsibility. You cannot hold Pakistan accountable for every failure that that comes your way. You have to look at things. You have to look at things within Afghanistan, and you have to look at things in the region. What are others thinking? What are their priorities? What are their objectives? So at times it's very easy to pass the buck. Now you've seen the new strategy. This administration announced a new strategy called the South Asia Strategy that has been in place for over a year now. Why don't you assess it? Why don't you gauge for yourself to what extent you've succeeded and to what extent you have not been able to achieve what you were hoping to achieve? And what are the reasons? Is Pakistan responsible? Are we the spoilers? Or is it more than that? Or are there internal challenges within Afghanistan, the writ of the government? There are districts and districts where they have no control. There are areas where the Taliban still have considerable influence. We can facilitate, we can help, and everything is not within our power.
I was actually particularly found it interesting that the Russians as I mentioned, are trying to hold a conference to bring together the Taliban and Afghan government and other actors, and that sort of is a completely new role for them because they've been absent in this conversation, at least last time around when we talked about reconciliation. So do you see them also sort of as becoming a more visible player in the region?
Interestingly, I'll be meeting the Russian foreign minister immediately after this meeting. If you have a message,
so you can ask him.
If you have a message, whisper.
It's questions. But do you see them as playing a bigger role?
Well, they perhaps have expressed an interest in the what is it called, the Moscow format? Mm-hmm. Perhaps that shows that they do have an interest. Yes, they are important. They have their presence in the region, the extended region, and they have influence in the Central Asian republics. Mm. So if we want to succeed, and we succeed we must, then a regional approach should not be ruled out.
Okay, very good. So I wanted to leave some time for question and answer, and I actually encourage everybody that ask questions, not a second speech. And with that, maybe we can start here. And you should perhaps wait for the microphone, this gentleman here.
It's on. Thank you very much for giving us the time. Being a Swiss national, we are always in the famous news of Pakistani money in Switzerland. And my question to the foreign minister is, what your government is doing and how the far overseas Pakistanis living in Switzerland can help you?
We are certainly interested in Swiss accounts. I can assure you. Well, yes. My government and my party feels this country has been plundered. This country has been plundered by corrupt politicians. And it's not just politicians, there are others as well. It's time to get a house in order. If we fix ourselves, if we put our house in order, we do not have to come running to the IMF. We can generate enough resources. We are not a poor country. We waste our resources. There's pilferage, there's wastage. Our priorities are wrong. And this government wants to fix them. What we have done, sir, is set up a task force under a fairly young lawyer who's also been an effective prosecutor to help us recover assets, stolen assets. So we're putting together a team. We are seeking international help, and we are interested in trying to A, block the flight of capital, undertake legislation to check money laundering, and if we can, retrieve that money that's been parked abroad.
Say that lady in the corner there.
Assalamu alaikum, Shah Mahmood. Shazia Rafi, President of Air Quality Asia. So coming to the question that Bali was asking about regional cooperation, clearly the avenue through the heads of government and the foreign policy are somewhat blocked. But the area of environmental policy might be a way in for dialogue. Of the 20 most polluted cities in the world by air pollution, 17 are between India and Pakistan, 14 in India, 3 in Pakistan. And WHO is going to be holding its first air pollution meeting in Geneva at the end of October. It might be an opportunity, since ministers on environment and health could be attending, to begin to open a dialogue. Would your government be open to that?
We've never shied away, Shazia, from any dialogue. And yes, pollution is a serious challenge. I mean, you visit the country, and I know you do. Come to Lahore in the winter, and you see the smog, and you see you see the air pollution. It's alarmingly high. For the first time, Imran Khan and his government is waking up and is jolting the nation, there is a thing called environment. And we've got to have environmental friendly policies. And today we have in place an advisor to the Prime Minister, Amin Aslam, who is looking after this area. We undertook a campaign in the KP province of planting trees. It had international recognition. And we want to replicate that successful model all over the country. We want to plant 10 billion trees over the next 5 years. So what we are doing is, we've just had a meeting of the Council of Common Interest, which is a constitutional body, where we've invited all the provinces, Sindh and Baluchistan, Punjab, KP. And one of the agenda items, you would be surprised, was how to clean our cities, how to lift garbage, how to just, deal with solid waste and start a campaign. So yes, this government is conscious of the fact that environment matters. It has a direct impact on lives, and we want to move ahead, and we are ready for a dialogue on such issues.
So we have a question on Twitter. It's by an Imran, who says, will the foreign minister be meeting Pakistani American community while he's here?
I did. I met some in Washington the day I arrived. They were about, Narjas is sitting there, she organized it. There were about 140 of them who were there, and thank you for coming. And I want to meet more of them, because American Pakistanis are very valuable. They can give us rich input in intellectual input, and they support us. One of the reasons that we had difficulty in convincing other political parties when there was electoral reform and the Parliamentary Committee on Electoral Reform was meeting in Pakistan, the other two sort of old entrenched parties were very reluctant to give overseas Pakistanis a right to vote, because they feel the overwhelming majority of them are inclined this way. But we've succeeded, and now the Supreme Court has given them the right to vote, and hopefully they will have, by this right to vote, they will have a stake in the country, and they will be able to influence not just policy, future governments of Pakistan.
That gentleman all the way in the back. No, behind the gentleman standing.
This is Azim Mian from GeoTV and Young Group. Mr. Foreign Minister, you will be meeting Mike Pompeo on Tuesday. Apart from Afghanistan, what are the other, diverse issues pending between Pakistan and America, which has strained the relationship? And are you concerned with the security alliances and arrangements out of this 2+2 dialogue in New Delhi? How Pakistan, because in the past, India has been expressing the same kind of security concerns against Pakistan whenever Pakistan signed any agreement. So do you see any kind of security concern out of that dialogue? Thank you.
Azim Mia, to begin with, I know my limitations, and I've got to have a realistic agenda. Obviously, I think besides Afghanistan, what is important is US-Pakistan relations. We have been, for the last now over a decade, connecting through Afghanistan. We are looking at things through the prism of Afghanistan, and we have a bilateral relationship. And that bilateral relationship should be developed further, in my view. Yes, I understand, and I said it the other day, that I have learned, or I'm beginning to learn, that the road to Washington is via Kabul.
Is this gentleman here in the front?
Mr. Minister, this is Zaid Malik from Islamabad, the editor of the Daily Metro Watch. As you mentioned in your speech that USA has changed or have new friends in the region, you are looking for this also to have new friends, or you still hope that USA will be your friend anymore? Number two, we have noticed whenever there is a non-democratic governments in Pakistan, USA-Pakistan relations are much better. What's the reason behind? There is a problem with democracy or the Democrats?
I just talked about very good relations. Now, the first question was their relationships. They're sovereign countries. They have a right to have relationships. They have a right to have their priorities. And what I want to put in effort and convey is, by all means, but why lose old friends? Have new ones. Why lose old friends? That's one. And we have to see how to manage our relationship. It's management as well. But who knows? We could be in sync. We could have a convergence on a number of issues. And we might not see eye to eye on a number of issues. That is possible. So we have to manage. This relationship, and we have to manage expectations as well. And your second question was that they are supportive of military governments and they're not supportive of democratic governments. But the beauty is that the things have changed in Pakistan. Today, look at the statements of General Bajwa. He's supportive of a democratic order. There is a consensus within Pakistan that democracy and only democracy is the way forward.
So that young man all the way in the corner.
Thank you so much, Minister, for the amazing speech. My name is Liu Qing. I'm from China, and I'm a Columbia School of International and Public Affairs second-year master's student. So you may have guessed that my question is going to be about CPEC. So with the new government shifting its priority on the infrastructure into the human development instead of infrastructure, how would you see the prospect of all the CPEC projects having pledged, or like the Guadalquivir projects, and how would you see the implication of the current government's priority on the Pakistan-China friendship as we frame it in China? Also, like, how would you see it as in the round of global backlash or pushback around the Belt and Road Initiative projects? Thank you so much.
The Pakistan-China Economic Corridor is a flagship project of the BRI initiative. We feel that it is a project when implemented in totality will bring a lot of economic dividend, not just to Pakistan, not just to China, but to the entire region. So everybody stands to benefit from this project. This government accepts and continues with the same policy. There is a national consensus. We had a debate. We had a huge debate when the project was being conceptualized, and today I'm happy to share with you there is a consensus in the country that this initiative is beneficial for all of us. So our priority will remain on completion of the ongoing projects and we have started now talking about phase 2. And what is phase 2? As I said, there is a difference in approach in this government and the last government. The last government was focusing on infrastructure projects, and at times it makes sense. You've got to have infrastructure for economic development. But then there were projects, in our view, that could have had a different priority. For example, the Lahore Orange Line, the underground. It's good to have public transport. We all benefit. But in a country with different challenges, perhaps, in our view, it shouldn't have been a higher priority. It would have come later. But nonetheless, we will complete the ongoing projects, and we would want to shift the focus on livelihoods and on human development. And that's why we are talking about relocation of labor-intensive industry. We are talking of how can China help Pakistan increase its industrial production, how they can help us by transfer of technology, how they can help our per acre yields, productivity, how they can help us, develop more skilled manpower, and so on and so forth. Gwadar and the ports and the rest come with it. So we've had good discussions, and it's a long gestation project. There is a consensus on it, and hopefully it will be not just of mutual benefit, it will be of regional benefit. And we also are now inviting third parties to come and invest, come and see for themselves where the benefits lie, and come and invest in the project.
The young man all the way back in the end.
Hi, Bilal Lakhani from Express Tribune. China and America are vying for power and dominance and influence in our part of the world. You very cleverly sort of danced around and given enough love to both sides. But between the wife and the mistress, if the mistress forced you to choose, which way, according to sort of PTI's heart or the Pakistani government's heart, are we leaning more in terms of our long-term aligned interests between the U.S. and China?
Depends which day of the week are you talking about. You know, it could be Monday to Friday, and it could be weekends. So you can always choose between the wife and the mistress, depending on the day of the week. No, both are important. Both are important. And one understands there are issues. One understands there is a new feeling. I wouldn't call it containment. I don't know if that's the right word. But China has no issue in Pakistan having a good relationship with the US. And they've said so. They've spelled it out. They have no issue. They completely understand the history of our relationship, our needs, our present and future needs, and they are comfortable with it. So
this young lady,
it's going to be a difficult balance.
So
but it's always difficult to balance between a wife and a mistress.
Hello, my name is. Oh, it is. Okay. I'm Pakistani-American writer. I would like for you to talk a little bit about the human rights violations that are going on in Myanmar for the Rohingya community as well as the Muslim community in China. I know that Pakistan is constantly speaking about how it's a victim, but I feel Pakistan is a very strong power in the world. I mean, one of its military is one of the strongest militaries in the world. You have you do arms trade with Myanmar. You go into Yemen, you go into Rwanda, and you have a really great relationship with China as well. So how can Pakistan?
Into Yemen? The
Pakistani army.
We're not in Yemen.
They were.
No, we are not.
On behalf of the UN, you did
No,
go
ma'am, we are
into...
not.
Okay.
We are not in Yemen.
Okay.
I just want to qualify. I want to just clarify.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. But yet you do have armed trades, with Myanmar as well. So and a very strong relationship with China. So what can Pakistan do positively, and use its power for these various communities around the world?
Obviously, human rights violations should be of concern to any caring human being. And yesterday, despite some hesitation of the officers working with me here in the mission, I chose to meet a delegation of different people, I forget the name, who are talking about these very issues. I met with them, and I listened to them, and yes, we are concerned about the refugees, the millions that have fled, they've been displaced. Yes, the world must wake up and pay attention. And many of them are living in very difficult conditions. And mind you, at times, priorities change. I can share with you, we have 2.7 million refugees living in Pakistan today. The world has forgotten about them. You've just seen an influx because of the situation in the Middle East and some of the migration, legal, illegal, that has taken place, and how that has impacted Western politics, European politics. Look at the patience, look at the large-heartedness of the people of Pakistan, that we have been hosting them and we have looked after them for now decades. We are sympathetic. We want them to return with honor and dignity, but there are no abuses. They've been assimilated. They've been accommodated.
Okay, this gentleman here.
My name is from Overseas Pakistani Television Network. As you mentioned that the 1 million Pakistani, your source and resource. What is your expectation from Pakistani American to build a strong relation between USA and Pakistan?
I think some of our American Pakistanis, they're Americans, but they have a Pakistani origin. They belong here, they live here, they love this country, they respect the laws here, and they'll continue. And their children will live here. They have no desire of coming back. But they care about Pakistan. My expectation from them is act as ambassadors. I understand the limitations. I understand the limitations of the Foreign Office and the reach of the Foreign Office. I think this community, American Pakistanis, who have connections, who have friends, and they contribute in different ways into American politics, should lobby for Pakistan. Today I feel that we are misunderstood in the US Congress. We need more engagement with the US Congress. We need to talk more, we need to engage more, and they can be of great help in doing that.
A gentleman in green.
Foreign Minister Masood Haider from Dawn newspaper of Pakistan. Just want to know from you, what do you think is the reason for India to be so reluctant to talk to Pakistan, especially concerning the Kashmir issue and so forth? What is it that it will take for them to come and sit down on table with you, in your opinion? Is that possible? And will there be a plebiscite within a foreseeable future?
Why are they reluctant? Simply, sir, politics, elections. The scare of their electorate. They have taken the pendulum. They swung the pendulum to such an extreme. now they're finding it difficult to bring it back. And with the elections around the corner, they felt that it could boomerang. That's why, they were shy. I was quite concerned when I saw the Minister for External Affairs. When I was in the room, she looked pale to me. She looked very worried. And I wish we could have smiled at each other. But I could see the immense strain. And when she left, he wasn't even willing to engage with the media. I had no problem. But I could see the pressure. I could see the political pressure on her. So politics, nothing else. Politics, domestic politics.
So we made a promise to Shah Mahmood to have him out of here by 1:45. We definitely don't want to have Foreign Minister Lavrov waiting. Please join me in thanking the Foreign Minister for an excellent conversation. Thank you. Thank you. Excellent.
Thank you, buddy.